So it appears that the shills for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, they sat there and they told you the game is not woke, the game is not gay, the game is not multicultural filth. They told you that this game was also just not overall boring. I mean, they told you all these things. I don't know. I think some people said that there's a lot of choices in this game. Maybe. I don't know about that. I think some people said that. But anyways, people are saying all sorts of things about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Now, listen, man. Oh, man. You know, okay, so this is one of those things. There's a game that I played recently. I'm forgetting it right now, but this is one of those games where it seems like a lot of people have a lot of things to say because they haven't finished the game. Now, they don't just come out and outright say that they haven't finished the game or whatever. Instead, they just talk about these games without even really being honest about it, which I don't honestly care. But you know, it's like at some point, it's like, okay, but it's so clear that you guys don't know what you're talking about. So anyways, let's just head this off with this one right here. This game is feminist propaganda. The amount of times that women have the one up on men, the amount of times you have this chick named like Ruby or Rosa, I think is her name. Her name's Rosa. So this chick named Rosa, she literally gets a random shot with a crossbow and a kill on some dude during some climatic moment in the story. And by the way, this game has so many jingles and certain cutscenes whenever a woman gets a one-up on a man, or whenever supposedly awesome moments are happening in the story. Who cares? It's what the writer, it's what the director wants you to think and regard as the awesome moments in the story, in the game. But it's not actually cool. And you're sitting there and you're like, that was lame. And you're sitting there and you're like, why am I supposed to clap? Am I supposed to clap now? It's these moments where, because they have a little jingle, like think of Star Wars, when an awesome moment happens, there's a jingle that happens. And this game is it's trying so hard to be like medieval Star Wars, or maybe even Lord of the Rings, right? Like in Lord of the Rings, an awesome moment happens and an awesome score plays, soundtrack, right? So this game tries to do that same thing. Now, of course, every moment in this game sucks. Every time the jingle plays, oh, you know, whatever. That's the moment that you just roll your eyes and you're like, why am I here? This story sucks. The moment that they just executed sucks. The characters suck. I'm gonna be honest. The characters are lame. They're gay. And they're boring. Hans is way more effeminate in this game than in the previous game. There's a lot of things different about this game compared to the previous game. When we look at Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, for one, in the previous game, the women were very modest, they were nice, they were kind, they were effeminate, they were proper feminine. The kind of feminine that, I don't know, a lot of women before the age of modernity were just like this. You know, they were not combative with men. They were not needlessly sassy. You know, it's such a pathogen that nowadays we believe that women, to be charismatic or have a personality, they need to be sassy. They need to be rude. They need to always have a back-talking remark towards a man and shame a man every 2 sentences of dialogue. Well, this game changes the way that women speak. Noticeably, women are combative. Noticeably, women are always back-talking men. And noticeably, women are always disrespectful, and they always have to shame a man. Oh, you know, you boys can't keep your peckers in your pants, that kind of thing. It's spoken by, I think, 2 or 3 women in this game, that sort of line. Shaming men. Oh, you know, there's this chick that has a lot of cleavage and decent breast size in the game. She's one of the main girl boss chicks in this game that I spoke about in the previous video, talking about how she slaps, in the first 3 hours of the game, she slaps 2 men, I believe, and then she's ready to duke off with a guy as well. I mean, she's just constantly girl bossing, and guess what? Yeah, she assassinates some dude when Henry is being fake tortured because this game has a bunch of torture scenes where you're not actually torturing anybody, but whatever. Okay. It's super sterilized, but okay, let's just keep on going here. Well, you're chained up and you're stuck in a prison. And then one of the guards is like, oh, what's up, wench? You came here to give me some of my drink. What's up, girl? And then he goes, oh, and he's dead. Okay, he got freaking cut at the throat by our girl boss in shining armor, the Teresa chick, whatever the frick her name is, chick with breasts. And so then she's showing up. She's like, oh, lads, have you been busy just sitting around like a bunch of freaking jerk-offs? And every guy, one of the dudes laughs. He's like, oh, I'm so glad you're here. Just playing it off like he's super proud of her because, like, wow, women are so strong. And then, your main character's like, oh, our lass in shining armor. Am I so glad to see you? And it's like, what's up with these cucks, man? Like, you guys are acting like this is a big deal. It's not. So, anyways, every retard cuck and his retard brother, they're all jerking off about our feminists in shining armor. Yeah, so good job on you. You get a freaking dagger slit across the throat of some dude. And it's like, it's amazing. Because it's like, in so many scenes across this game, men do not fight back at women. And this is the biggest thing about feminist writing, is that men never fight back at women. They just never fight back. If a woman throws hands, the dude's just waiting to get punched. It's not like you see the chick readying the fist, readying to throw the fist, and then you sit there immediately and you grab her and you throw her to the ground and you keep her from attacking you. No, that doesn't happen. And then, in older times, especially in black countries, she gets raped. But outside of reality ever happening, by the way, we got a character named Musa in the game, a black dude, who says that Mali is a far more developed country than, he literally multiple times in this story, he literally says that the Europeans, and specifically these guys in Bohemia, he says that, oh, you guys are so savage and barbaric, quite frankly. And I sat there and I was like, and you have these freaking cucks, the Shills, they sit there and they say, oh, it's not woke. And yet we have a black character constantly saying that a black society, none of them are this, by the way, but okay. He says that a black society is more developed than a white society. That has never been true throughout history, including today. Right now, today, Africa is still much more barbaric. They have a bunch of domestic terrorism. That's a big problem for them in their country. By the way, you want to know who's actually trying to help fix that problem? White countries. Oh, that's interesting. And also a little bit of China. But there's a lot of money being thrown at Africa, and there's still a hell hole. Isn't that interesting? China and America, taxpayer dollars that they did not want their money to go to Africa, but whatever. Okay, regardless of what you want. Here we are with, we keep on saying that they was kings and they was queens and blah blah blah, and that they're super strong and super independent, and yet they live in a trash hole, and no matter how much money is given to them from outside countries to build up their schools and build up their economy, they're still a trash hole. Gee, at some point you might want to ask yourself, there might be trash hole people, and they might come from trash hole backgrounds and countries. You might just want to start admitting it. But here we are, we have to act like, oh, egalitarianism is so correct, and, everyone's equal, every race is equal, there's not trashy races and great races, quality races. It's so funny, because it's like, everyone wants to sit there and jerk off the Indians recently, with Elon Musk saying that they're smarter. It's like, you want to know something that's so interesting about Indians? They never desire their own women. They always desire white women. It's so interesting that melanated countries, they never desire after their own women. They always desire after the white man's women. And then they always want to not move into melanated countries. They always want to move into non-melanated countries. And then everyone sits there and they act like when you bring in a bunch of these minorities from the melanin countries, apparently your country's not going to turn into a complete trash hole. There's a reason why these countries are third world nations. And there's a reason why first world nations are not third world nations. And there's a reason why first world nations are white. But here we are. We want to act like everyone's equal, even though clearly everyone's not. So here we are. This game sells to us a lot of racial propaganda, specifically through Musa. He is the Trojan horse for everything, saying that white people and white civilizations are quite frankly barbaric, even though he even says in the story, I believe he says directly, he says that it is his home country, Mali or whatever the frick, some African country. He says that it's very, that his king was overthrown and that it was very violent and that there's a lot of revolution. And it's like, and that's why he's running away from there and he's going to Bohemia where all the white people are at. And we're going to complain a little bit about racism, by the way, through his character. It's just so ridiculous. It's like, if you don't like white people and you don't like white people countries so much, stay in your country. Oh, but that's right. Your people are not very stable, are they? So then you run away. This freaking filth, and by the way, the freaking writers, including Vavra, they believe in this horse filth. They absolutely believe in it. But yet, they can't help but sprinkle a little bit of reality into it, but they always try to play it off like, oh, well, it's the bigotry or it's unfair circumstances that makes blacks not have a better society or whatever, and that they was kangs and they're better than you. Okay, whatever. And by the way, no one cares. People try to sit there and say this, the cucks that are either white or the retard activists that are black, they like to sit there and say that the first Christian church was apparently Ethiopian and the first Bible was the Ethiopian Bible and blah, blah, blah. No one cares. Nobody cares. Guess what? The best Christian nations are whites. Who cares who did it first? Who even knows? Who actually knows what the Ethiopian whatever was or what the first Bible was? It was so long ago. Who knows what the demographics were at that time? Could have been that white people were in Africa. It could have been that because the climate, by the way, climate has changed multiple times throughout the Earth's history. Could have been that the white people were just in that region at the time. Who knows what the frick was going on? Or maybe the Jews were there in Ethiopia at that time. Who the frick knows? Okay? We have an idea, but let's just be honest. We don't actually have a great idea. A lot of archaeology and whatnot is just an uneducated guess where you pick up little scrambles of information and then you act like you have an educated guess when you don't. So, there's a lot of study that goes into all this. There's a lot of information people don't know or a lot of information to this day being corrected. So archaeology is just a complete joke where people act like we actually know what we're talking about. Whatever the Ethiopian whatever is, does not matter. We know that the best nations are Christian. We know that Christianity is what? The civilizations are actually Christian, not voodoo, not having a bunch of missionaries coming over to convert people. You know where missionaries go? They go to a lot of countries, but they specifically also go to Africa because Africa is not a Christian location. You want to know where voodoo comes from? A lot of black people from black people countries. I don't know, Africa. So anyways, here we are with all this nonsense, all this propaganda. People love to sit there and say that the first missionaries, I think some people try to say that, but it's like, why? Okay. But they love to say that the first missionaries and the first Christians and the first believers and the mobilization of Christ, or not even Christ, but just the Bible in general, came from Africa and just African people, black people, even though there is no shred of that being evidenced within recent history, and in the past and today as well. Okay, there's no evidence for this, but these freaking morons, they run around and they start up their narratives and then they act like they're right. Okay, we know. Okay, I'm just gonna simplify this. Let's just simplify this because I'm done with this topic. Okay, nobody cares about whether or not black people are Christian. The best nations are Christian, and the best Christian nations are white. And yes, Christian is white. It does stem from that. So it doesn't matter what anyone wants to think or say, because observable reality through recent past history, we can look back at the last 500, 600, 700 years outside of the historical revisionists who want to act like, by the way, that like Italians are actually black because and that the blacks, by the way, taught the Italians how to read and write, all that nonsense. Oh, love of God, help me. Whatever. Oh gosh, God, man, the amount of retardation. But again, you can have all these people run around and paint their narratives and say a lot of BS and a lot of nonsense. Whatever, just move on. These people are freaking clowns. These are ESG activists. Go F yourself, literally, and go chew on some rope. It's free. So anyways, guys, That's that whole thing there. Musa is a stand-in for the Trojan horse of propaganda. By the way, right here, we're just gonna jump to a different point in the game. Let's just cutscene here or whatever. Oh man, there's a lot of. By the way, this game, lots of walking and talking. Just lots of walking and talking. This game honestly is boring, and a lot of people will tell you that this game's boring. As much as there's shills for this game, it's just a lot of walking and talking, and I really don't know what the gameplay is, if I'm being honest with you. I mean, the gameplay is pretty much like the previous game, but it's like, instead of giving us like a bunch of sieges and like, you know, air quotes, we get sieges in this game, but no, you know, they could have really done a lot more to really deliver more depth on the gameplay, but the gameplay honestly feels very skeleton. It's just like, okay, swing your sword and block certain directions and attack certain directions, whatever. Who cares? The point I was exiting from, though, earlier, is just like this whole thing with Musa is just absolute propaganda. He literally says multiple times, he says that women are treated better in his country, when, by the way, back then, women were cannibalized. Back then, people in general were cannibalized. And by the way, the real life Musa, as I heard, or the guy that's the stand-in for Musa, he actually gifted to a people of a neighboring region or whatever to appease them. He gifted to them a black woman that I think that he was in possession of or whatever, and they ate her. They cannibalized on the woman in real life. But now we have this Musa guy thrown into this game, who I don't know how historically accurate he's supposed to be or not. I don't know. I don't care. And he's sitting there saying that, oh, in my home country, the women are treated better. Absolute nonsense. Women are treated best in Christian nations. And by the way, put them in the kitchen and keep them in the kitchen. This is nonsense. You freaking cocks. But here we are. Here we are with this freaking filth, this freaking propaganda nonsense. Again, yeah, man, geez, you know, there's a lot of cutscenes in this game, but I can't find the cutscenes apparently. We're just gonna, because most of this game is it's just a lot of walking and talking, and a lot of, oh man. And then this is the other thing with the game, dude, there's a bunch of dialogue fatigue. You will be listening to the dialogue at first, and you will have your attention there, and you'll be like, oh, okay, I'll listen. And then once you're at 10 hours, and it happens before this, but I don't think it's escapable for anyone. Once you're 10 hours in, how do you not just get tired of these people talking in circles? No one says anything of any substance. Everyone's rambling in this game, in this story. Basically, past like 4 hours or 5 hours or 6 hours, it really depends on where you're at in your playthrough, but like very quickly, you just get to a point where it's like everyone's just talking and there's no reason to listen. Like it's just drama hour for certain characters. It's exposition dump on needless characters. Nothing of importance is spoken or said multiple times throughout the story. And you're listening to these people talk, and they're like, "Oh, well, today I was baking my toast in the cooking pot with water, and it got a little bit burnt with the water in the cooking pot, and I was really upset about it, and it reminded me of yesterday where my cat died, and my cat, by the way, his name was Fitzgerald, and Fitzgerald, he had a great way with words, specifically meowing all the time." Although it kind of woke me up every morning and it kind of bothered me. And it's just, this means nothing. What are you talking about? But this is the game. This is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. We're going to sit around, and I said this in my impressions video. You can see it in the impressions playlist. Oh, frickin' A, man. Oh, man. Oh, gosh. Oh, gosh. I hate this. I hate this game. This game is a bloated mess. I can't believe this game takes like 40 to 60 hours to finish. It takes 40 to 60 hours to finish. But anyways, there's just a bunch of dialogue fatigue. You just keep on going throughout the story and people are just saying things and it doesn't matter. And you're just like, what the freak are we doing here, man? And again, I said that dialogue fatigue, this is the biggest issue. Whenever you make a story, whenever you make a product, and this is female writing, by the way, and there is, by the way, a woman on this writing team. And I'm thinking about another game that came out recently. Avowed came out recently, and geez, like, female writing always does this, where it's bloated writing, where no one says anything of substance, and you're pedaling your wheels, you're spinning in circles, nothing of importance is being spoken or said. It's absolute nonsense. But you know, oh man, but yeah. So, oh gosh, dude. There's so many pain points that I have with this game. It is so tiring to go through. You start to tune out the dialogue. And if you're smart, you start to skip the dialogue. Because you're like, dude, everyone's saying everything of no importance, no value. And this is the thing, when you're making a story, every step of the way, you need to have substantive writing. Your characters need to be saying something for an important plot point that is developing or is being delivered. If you are executing or developing meaningless plot points, and it's just like, oh, well, we just need people to talk because there's value in people just talking and just rambling, then your player is going to get fed up. And they're honestly, or you're, you know, if it's a moviegoer or whatever, people are going to stop vesting attention and interest in the dialogue. And because of that, you're going to check out and you're going to extract yourself. You're going to say, you know what? I'm going to drop the game, or I'm just going to skip the cutscenes. I'm going to skip all these things. I'm not going to pay attention anymore. I'm out of it. And then, you know, funnily enough, if you do that, I mean, the story really doesn't change for you because the main plot points of the story are not tied to all this meaningless dialogue. So anyway, man, so just back to the feminism. So women, many times in the story, they're mean to men. They backtalk and they're sassy to men. They speak like modern women. A lot of people, compared to the first game, a lot of people speak modern day. A lot more cursing is in this game. A lot more modern day euphemisms are in this game, spoken by the men and the women. But specifically the women, you notice the most change. The women, they constantly speak in a way that is just disrespectful of men. They're girl bosses. They always speak in a way where I need no man. They're always talking in a way that's independent of men, and also in a way where they're never going to be hit by a man for how they speak to them. So you have women running around being disrespectful little C words to the dudes in this game, including Henry. You have Henry or other men trying to make moves onto women, and women are shaming them constantly. By the way, you actually get a Now, I don't know if this is in every playthrough. But listen, this is what happened for me, okay? I covered in my impressions video that you lose reputation for flirting with a woman after Henry gets injured and she's nursing him back to health because, you know, that's the prologue of the game, blah, blah, blah. Henry falls down a cliff. You lose reputation for flirting with a female. Do you want to know what happens when you romance and you're about to have sex with Hans? In this game, you get reputation gained. You actually get reputation gained for having sex with Hans. By the way, homosexuality is punishable by death in the Bible, specifically for Christianity. It is an absolute mortal sin, homosexuality. But here we are, we're tolerating it in this game. And I have some other things to say about, okay, I'll just say it now. There's a bunch of gay innuendos. All the dialogue in this game. A bunch of gay innuendos everywhere. The enemies, they didn't say this in the previous game, but they constantly talk about, I'm gonna rip your anus out. I'm gonna, they say constant, just homosexual stuff all the time. Are you yanking my pizzler or whatever? It is also what's expressed multiple times by different characters and enemies in this game. I mean, it's just like, I don't, this needless homosexuality that's been just forced, and I don't know if Vavra or other writers are just revealing how ragingly homosexual they themselves are, but it's like, it just feels like this is like sexual outlet hour for some freaking homosexual on the writing team, probably Vavra, okay? Something's going on there, but it's just absolute nonsense. So anyways, I mean, we got feminism up the wazoo. We got homosexuality that is just brazenly brought into this game. Literally, there's multiple homosexual characters, and we involve a lot of homosexuality into storyline, which nobody wants, nobody needs. The homosexuality should not be in media, should not be in stories, should not be in our movies, our games, whatever. Should not be in anything. We don't want homosexuality. This is degenerate. This is gross. Keep it out. This is not normal. This should not be normalized. This should not be advertised. Nobody wants this crap. But here we are. This nonsense. So, you've got that layer of the propaganda, the homosexual layer. We got the feminist layer, where women are constantly boss babes, talking back to men, especially in scenes where they should be hit by men for the way that they're speaking to them. Women constantly disrespecting men. It can be young, old women. You have a scene, you have a freaking mission where, main mission, I believe, where you're trying to get these prostitutes for this regal guy, this noble man. He is an older gentleman type of dude. And you're trying to get these prostitutes to get with this guy because you're trying to, I think you're trying to assassinate him, or no, you're trying to get blackmail. It's one of the many things that you're trying to do. I don't care. This is earlier in the game. And the women are literally sitting there saying, oh, please, I don't want to have sex with this man. I'll do anything but have sex with him. And it's like, by the way, if you know anything about real life women, they don't give a crap. If a man has status, they will have sex with him. They don't care how old the freaking guy is, by the way. So, like, here's the thing, though. Especially back then, women would have never said about a nobleman, oh, please, anything but getting with the nobleman. No, they'd be like, which hour? What hour? I'm getting with the nobleman. You know how many women want to... to this day, want to have sex with men of higher status. Even women with status want to have sex with men with status. But most specifically, back then, when people, wealth disparity was even crazier because undeveloped economies, no technology. Back then, in medieval Europe, you know how many women they were begging to get with freaking European trads? No, European noblemen. You know how many women want to get with high status men, especially back then? You know that how many women were subject to starvation or premature death because they didn't get with men of higher status? This is ridiculous. Another layer, because this is just more because what is all this propaganda? What is wokeness in the end? Egalitarianism, the belief in all these ideas that all races are equal, that all genders, well, okay, and then we also make up that there's multiple genders, but specifically that the two genders are equal, and that we, and then also socialism, communism, is to equate the man that labors to the man that does not labor. So it's an equation of labor. It's an equality of effort placed into the economy and whatnot. It's to make those who are useless in the economy be seen as equal to those who are absolutely vital to the economy. So we do this in multiple layers, this propaganda. But a part of this propaganda is also the propaganda that women, no matter their age, are equal in beauty. No, they're not. Women in their 20s are always going to be more attractive than women in their 30s and 40s. It just doesn't matter. Even a woman that's still hot in her 50s has nothing on a 20-year-old. It's just that simple. This has been true all throughout history. It's still true to this day. Women know it. Men know it. Everyone knows it. In men, they gain value as they age. It's just that simple. If a guy's 18, simple as this. You're just not as desirable as a guy that's in his 30s. It's just that simple. To women in their 20s. It's just that simple. So, this is biology. This is biological nature. And here we are selling this propaganda that these young, fertile women who are prostitutes, whores, it doesn't matter if they're whores or not. These women, we're selling this propaganda that they don't want to get with a nobleman. This is absolute nonsense. Absolute. This is a man that's educated. This is a man that has social status. He has some level of class. But here we go with the propaganda. So, there's exceptions because obviously women want to get with the most attractive man as well. Women do like how good a man looks, how fit he is, and etc., etc. They do care about all that, but they care about status that much more. And And so anyway, but there's a bunch of layers to all this, and it does differ a little bit by woman. Some women, for different reasons, they might find a man that is physically attractive more desirable than a man with status. It really depends on the woman. But you can have 3 attractive women, and ultimately the reality is that they want to get with the nobleman. You know, maybe one of those 3 attractive women, they want to get with, one of them wants to get with the lumberjack that's freaking chiseled, okay? That's just the dude, he's a chat and chiseled dude. They want to get with him super bad, okay? Or that chick specifically, but maybe all of them do, but that one chick really does. And then the other women, they might desire status more, but all women desire status no matter what. That's the ultimate truth. So, okay, and you know, we could keep on going into all that, but let's just move on. So anyways, that's just one layer of propaganda to just demonize the fact that young women, they do target for older men, for different reasons, and men, no matter the age, they always want to get with women who are past puberty. It's just that simple. And that's typically women who are seen. Typically, men find women between 21 to 24 years old the most desirable range of female beauty, but it can be before that or even slightly after that. But anyways. So, anyways, this game just does a bunch of propaganda on that front. So we got feminism propaganda, and it's all over. It's littered throughout this story, littered throughout this game, in multiple different ways. Now, the men are largely written in a masculine way for a good number of scenes, and there's largely gender roles in this game, but it doesn't matter because they're still pushing the propaganda all throughout this game. You will see it many times over and over again. Here, by the way, I just want to jump a little bit ahead so that you can see just some of the characters later in the game, or some of the scenes as well. Specifically, I would like to show, oh, this guy's basically Vavra. Well, I can't, oh, whatever, who cares? So anyways, we got the feminism propaganda. We got the multiculturalism propaganda. Musa should not be in the game. He should not be in the game. We got this random black guy character. He should not be in a white man's world. It's just that freaking simple. And this is enough with all games that keep on pushing the multiculturalism into our populations, into our demographics. It's enough and people are fed up with it. It doesn't make your world interesting. Guess why The Witcher 3 was such a great game? Part of it was the fact that everyone's just white. Especially in a European region. Yeah. It's so interesting, by the way, that they never try to force in all the browns and the blacks into games, by the way, where the location and its people are brown or black. Isn't that interesting? Whenever they make an African game or a game in the Middle East, you never see a lot of white people. Isn't that interesting? There's no melting pot there. Oh, that's weird. That's weird. Anyway. But, you know, okay, so there's so many things frustrating about this game. Again, the dialogue is eye roll all the time. Yeah, so this guy, I think he's basically a self-insert by Vavra, the director and lead writer for the game. Whatever. I mean, you know, you're a bad storyteller. So you self-inserting yourself is just stupid. If you were good at what you did, it wouldn't be stupid, but you're just bad at what you do, so screw you. Anyway. So we got multiple layers of propaganda. We've already addressed, right, homosexual stuff, feminism stuff, the multiculturalism stuff, which people are absolutely sick and tired of. We're sick and tired of having these melting pot populations. People are fed up with it today. In America, people are fed up with Americans who are white people. They're fed up with sharing their country. They're fed up with being told that you can't just want your country to be your people, which are what? Europeans, Caucasians, Anglo-Saxons, whatever. White people. People in America, they want to be surrounded by their fellow people, and that's not the melanated people. It's just that simple. There's exception for some of the blacks, because, right, the blacks and that whole thing. And sadly, Abraham Lincoln was never able to get them sent back to Africa. That's what he wanted to do, but then he got assassinated. And gee, I wonder if there maybe is a tie between his assassination and wanting to send back the blacks. I don't know about that. But anyways, you know, I mean, people, they're fed up with all of it. But it's like, okay, slight exception there, but not much of one. Anyways, who cares? Americans are fed up with sharing their country. Europeans are fed up with sharing their countries. White people are fed up with the fact that they can't just live in a white nation. They're fed up with it. This is why, by the way, Rome fell. Because you had a bunch of Middle Easterners in Rome during its later phase. And you also had some Africans, because Rome was a mix of, Spain, France, other Anglo-Saxon areas and regions, Serbia, Hungary, all these, they were called different names at the time. And also some of the same names from that time to this time, but whatever, that doesn't matter. All the rule changed, all the ruling provinces and the leaders at the time, it changed and it cycled throughout history, doesn't matter. Regardless, though, you had people from, what was it? Turkey. You had people from Egypt. You had people from Syria, as I understand, Lebanon. You had all kinds of, so you had a whole mixture of nationalities in Rome before it fell. And by the way, this is the leading reason why a lot of nations fall, is because it's not because of wealth disparity, because wealth disparity always exists in nations all throughout history, all throughout time. The problem is that you lose the spirit of the people. That's why a nation falls. We see this with Greece. Greece, the more that it developed, by the way, Greece, in its later years, it started to gain a lot of territories in more Middle Eastern countries, and obviously that's going to have a huge schism with the Greeks. You're going to have, when you, and also there's other regions too, but outside of that, and also Rome, by the way, it was England that also had, I did not realize, so Scotland, they never conquered Scotland as far as I understand, and that's why it's separate from England, at least back then. But anyways, moving on. So, but whenever you involve a nation to multiculturalism, to any degree, this will always inevitably create an internal passive tension for the population, and people will get fed up with each other and fed up with the conduction of their nation over time. Multiculturalism has always been a great predecessor to a nation's downfall. Every time. And right now today, you see that people are fed up with it. People in America are fed up with the fact, right now people are saying that you are American if you're Indian, if you're Chinese, if you're some other brand of Asian, if you are, Hispanic, if you're black, you're American. No, we know what American was. It wasn't black, it wasn't Hispanic, it's not Muslim, it's none of these races. It is Anglo-Saxon, Caucasian, white person. You can't just wash away history and then rewash it to be something else, color wash it to be black, brown, whatever. You can't just do this. You can't just erase what was fundamentally the identity of the people of that time. You can't just do that. Now, that is what we're doing today. Both the left and the right are doing this, and this will create problems down the road. You will lose your nation anytime you sit there and believe that you can just eradicate what the fundamental identity of a people in their nation is. That will create internal conflict. And right now in the EU, we're seeing this right now. It's going to happen right now in the EU before it happens in America, because America, it's differently governed, and freedom of speech is a big reason why it won't happen, but it is coming for America as well, whether the country does well or not. The problem and the stain and the disease of multiculturalism will always plague the identity of America until there is revolution. And right now, the EU, within the next year or 2 years, and it's coming up sooner and sooner as we speak, they're going to have a massive revolution, because you cannot just bring in a bunch of Indians and a bunch of Pakistanis and a bunch of, what's the other one? The Muslims from all the other Muslim countries. You cannot just continuously bring these people in and all the detriments that comes with it. You can't just bring these people in. By the way, in Sweden right now, I was surprised to hear of this information, but a lot of women right now are getting raped in Sweden, and a lot of violence is upticking in Sweden. And by the way, if you protest it like certain people do, and you're very vocal about it and very well known for it, then these people that are invading your country, they're very, 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 very willing to assassinate you. And that's what happened to one guy that was burning Qurans is that, well, he was burning Qurans because he was basically saying, I detest the invaders. When you make this pronounced and very well pronounced, well, guess what happens with the invaders? They're not like, oh, kumbaya, blah, 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 like the leftists tell you. No, they kill you. So this is a war. This has always been a war from its very inception. But like the more that they take over, the more of a war it obviously expresses itself and reveals itself to be. And this is what we're seeing happening to a lot of countries. So anyways, everyone's fed up in modern history, in elder history. Everyone's fed up with multiculturalism. And we keep on seeing it in our games. We don't want it in our games. We want, if we're going to have white people stories, and that's all Americans want. They want white people stories, and that's all Europeans want. They want white people stories. And honestly, let's just even face it, even Africans, even Indians, even these brown and black countries, even they want white people society, films, stories, etc. Because they're the ones that also, they don't love their own stuff as much as they love white people stuff. So regardless of the way that you put it, the crux of value is just simply with white nations. And people are fed up with this though, that within white nations, you can't just have white products. Moving on from that, we could keep on going, I don't care. So we got the multiculturalism, we got the feminism, we got the gay stuff. We've got, I can't remember, but I think they also try to push some of the gender stuff, like the gender bending nonsense, because there is mention of hermaphrodites. I don't know why, but there is. But whatever. And just one more time, the women are so mean and disrespectful to the men in this game. Let's just say that one last time. This is a big issue, is that no one can tell anymore the difference between a traditional woman and a modern day woman. Modern day women think that they can constantly backtalk men and always get a one-up in conversation on men and like act like they're outwitting a man in every step of conversation. And this is something that's tiring for men. This is why men and women are not getting married anymore. It's because women are so combative with men, and men, even though men want to love women to this day, despite how mean they are, it's impossible with the way that modern women are to this day. Current day, how mean, disrespectful, how corrosive, how viperous they are towards men. You can't have a family like this. The fact that women right now in the church, this is a big issue in the church today, is that women think that they can tell men how you need to govern and conduct yourself. Should you be having sex with multiple women or not? Should you be, I don't know, just doing whatever else? Whatever you want to do with women, if you want to have 5 girlfriends or not, or just women try to police men today in the church and act like they have a position to stand on. No, you're a woman. You answer to the authority and to the dictates of men. If you don't want to follow the Bible, then leave the church. But for some reason, they want to act like that they have any place to tell a man how he ought to govern himself. No, the only thing that a man is required to do by the Bible is to take care of the women that you invest parentally with, or, well, also marriage-wise, that's a whole other conversation. Mostly marriage is before God. You as a man, you are supposed to, if you tether yourself to a woman for whatever reason, you are now responsible for that woman. So that's typically marriage, even though there's some extraneous situations that we could also apply that to, but it doesn't matter. All right. But that is a man's, that is a man's loyalty. A woman's loyalty is her sexuality, is her ability, well, no, her obedience to a man, and her ability to restrain herself from being a massive raging whore. That is a woman's loyalty. That is a woman's integrity. And again, one last time, a man's integrity is what? His economical, let's say, commitment to a woman. It's just that simple. And it's all throughout the Bible that many of the men, the Abrahamic men, they did what? They had many wives, sub-wives, and mistresses, all right? A lot of Christians, for some reason, especially women, a lot of these modern day satanic Christians who are just egalitarians, and they worship at the altar of egalitarianism, and they fool themselves, it is Christianity. It's not. No, it's very simple. Biblical men, they have many women. And now, is it the best way to conduct a society to be, what is it, polyamorous or whatever? There's two terms for it, and it's, I think it's polygamous is for men, and then poly something is for women. So anyways, I don't care about the one for women. So anyways, polygamous society, it does have a lot of detriments. And so it is largely better that one man gets with one woman, but it's still biblical, regardless of what any retard wants to sit there and say. It is biblical that men get with multiple women. But anyways, that's outside of the point. And I honestly don't care. I just care about how much people just blatantly lie about this. And then we have women that literally sit there in the church and then try and boss around men and tell men how the church ought to be ran, how men ought to run themselves. And then they contort and they twist what the integrity of a woman is onto a man. A man having sex with more than one woman is not a stain on his integrity in any way whatsoever. Now, if you're having sex with women, whether it's monogamous or polygamous, and you are not being faithful towards God, then that's a problem. Then that is a lack of your integrity, and that is lust. But if you're having sex with like 15 different women, for one, that's not lust. And for two, if you still pledge your name and you pledge your life to God, and other things, if you still facilitate and express true and through integrity, faith, and let's say what I think the correct term here is posterity towards God. I think that's the right term. I might have to look that back up. Don't care. In the moment. Anyways, if you show all the layers of integrity and faith as well as commitment towards God, and in no way you allow your engagements with women to interfere with that or intervene upon your conduct with God or your faith with God or etc., then there is no problem with you as a man of God, of faith. And it's just that simple. But right now today, what we try to do, we sell this propaganda, these lies, that you have to govern yourself like a woman in order to be a man of God. And it's as simple as this, that is not the case. And anyways, I'm moving on from it because I already made the point. There is another point to be made within there, but honestly, I'm forgetting right now. So I'm just moving on though, because I'm honestly just fed up. So, but that's just the whole thing there, is that you have a lot of modern day women in the church. They do not understand their role. They don't understand their place with men. And they sit there and they act like they can just boss around men to begin with. No, if a guy wants to have sex with certain chicks or whatever, that is completely up to him. That is his decision. Now, it might be better that civilization is ran through monogamy, but that's a different conversation, and that is dictated by men, not women. When women think that they should dictate themselves to men, that is where you have problems, and that is where those women lack integrity with God. Because a woman's integrity is with God, is her integrity with a man. Because a woman's relationship to God is by proxy her relationship to her man, her husband, whoever else. And women, for a while, they understood this. And feminine women, they understand this because they're obedient, they're submissive, they defer to men as they should defer to God. Anyways, so moving on, it's a whole other conversation. I could say a whole bunch of other things, but let's just shorten it all. We're going to move on here. This game delivers so many layers of propaganda. This game is boring. This game barely has any RPG mechanics. I don't even really know what the RPG mechanics are outside of kind of leveling up. And I guess like it's more of a role-playing game in medieval ages instead. But it's like, I heard someone make this joke and it was funny, and I agree with this. Are you sick and tired of your boring real life? Well, lucky for you, you can buy Kingdom Come Deliverance II and live a boring medieval life. Buy it today. And when someone said that, I thought to myself, you know what, that's exactly on the nose right there. It's exactly true. Like this game, if you're so bored with your own existence, why not just play a game that is boring in the medieval world and just live a fake, boring life in a medieval society? So this right here, by the way, this is Musa. This is the black guy that has no business being in this game, but he's here because of ESG. because of Embracer Group. I don't really know their whole shtick and their whole deal, and honestly, I just don't care. It's another ESG group, so screw them. But of course, they gave a lot of ESG money, which means taxpayer money from America, to these developers to make this game, and you have to involve this nonsense, apparently. But Vavra seems to be a full-on, wholehearted believer of this nonsense, so regardless of it all. Okay, whatever. Anyways, man, let me just recount myself here. So, we pretty much just stormed through everything. I mean, that's everything I have to say. Again, the dialogue's boring. The dialogue has no meaning. The story's rehashed multiple times. Henry gets jumped. He gets captured multiple times throughout the storyline. They just rehash the same story, the plot, over and over again. The amount of scenes. Oh, and the thing I forgot to mention is that this is literally the title of my impressions video. This game is basically Monty Python for liberal Zoomer Sodomites. That's what this game is. And after finishing this game, my position changes in no way. This game is absolutely for the Sodomites. It is disgusting the amount of homosexuality that is allowed to be pushed and promoted in this game. I am disgusted with this. I can't believe that you have developers and people who say that they're right-wing. They try to make excuses for this nonsense. No, this is absolutely disgusting. This is demonic. This is satanic. And yeah, I'm sick and tired of the fact that God has no place in these conversations. No, you know what? God has a place in this conversation. This is disgusting. And yes, that is dictated by God. It's also dictated by history. It's dictated by biology, by science. Gee, I wonder why, gay people have so many diseases for being gay. It might be because also by just biological necessity. It's disgusting. No matter how you flip it, it's just disgusting. So there's no reason to be, we can ignore gay people and tolerate them on the level of ignoring them. But when you're sitting there and you're trying to normalize this nonsense and you're trying to popularize it, that's when it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. There's no reason to advertise homosexuality. It should absolutely be tucked into a corner of civilization, and it should be difficult for people to even hear about who's homosexual, or it should be even worse than that. But it's like, if we're going to tolerate it whatsoever, it should only be in that way. There is no world in which we should even tolerate this homosexual nonsense that you see today being advertised and popularized. This is nonsense. Outside of this, so as I said, the story just rehashes itself multiple times. Basically, the meat of the story only exists at the beginning, where most of the things happen of substance, and then maybe somewhere in the middle, I don't even know where. And then we get to the end of the game, and that's where the story picks back up, where we actually have a proper plot line again. But it's like, most of this game is just a bunch of bloat and a bunch of filler. And I can't believe a bunch of people sit there and they make excuses for this game, and it's trashy story, trashy characters. There are so many things about this game that I just cannot even believe how this was made. It's so boring. It's like, how the frick did the developers actually think that someone should spend their money on this and believe that their time is being well spent? This is nonsense. But again, you have people who are shilling this game. But man, I was so offended by this game because the amount of feminism, strong girl boss moments all throughout this game, the amount of moments where it's like we have to give Musa a hero moment for no good reason because he's the only black guy in the game. And then we have to shame anyone that makes low-key racist comments about Musa being a black man in a white man's country. Yeah, he's a black man in a white man's country, and honestly, he should go back to his country. This is ridiculous. But we keep on trying to posture and facilitate this guy as like the biggest and baddest deal on the freaking planet Earth. Oh wow, Musa is our Lord and Savior, and also he's a much more civilized man of culture because he's black and he comes from a black nation. It's just not nonsense, the amount of propaganda that we're selling through this character. And now I'm going to jump around because I'm forgetting a point that was really big that I was going to make. The women, by the way, are so difficult to romance in this game. They're so disrespectful, and to the very point, bro, It's actually easier to have sex with the men in this game. And this is, by the way, like straight up. So you have a selection of either having sex with Hans before the final siege of this game, or having sex with Teresa in this game. The chick that's busty, that slaps men, that I talked about at the beginning of the game, who is also incredibly disrespectful and a major girl boss, and she assassinates this one guy, the free Henry and the freaking bros, when they're imprisoned midway throughout the game. Okay, this chick who gets a girl boss moment, and again, it's completely ridiculous that a woman would ever assassinate a man, but here we are, we're acting like women can do the things that men can do too. If you want to romance her, there's a complete horse and pony show that you have to go through. There's all these steps, and it's actually difficult to understand how to sleep with Teresa. It's so out of the way to do it. There's all these steps before the end of the game to actually sleep with her. And when you just sit there and you just talk to Hans, it's so easy to have a gay sex scene with him. It's disgusting. It is filth. It's degenerate, but it's easier. Get this. It is easier with Hans and other homosexuals in the game. It is easier to have sex with the homosexual men in this game than it is to have sex with the women. And they tell you this isn't propaganda. And you lose reputation for flirting with women in this game. But you don't lose reputation, you actually gain reputation for having sex with Hans. And I don't know about the other men, but you literally, the game is actually pushing you towards being a homosexual in this game. Absolute nonsense. So anyways, there's many women in this game, girl boss moments all the time. You literally have a chick that sits there. By the way, Rosa, she says, oh, I can't run off with you, Henry, and have a life with you because not every woman desires to run off and get married. No, I have a legacy. I have a destiny, and I have to live out for my father's estate and his work. I need to live in his steps, and I need to be a girl boss and become some kind of, I don't know, expert in something. Basically, she needs to go pursue being a career woman, girl boss, babe, somewhere, and literally put off starting a family, which is absolute nonsense. And by the way, whenever women do this, their eggs, they dry up and they can't have freaking families. They can't have freaking children. And men do not want a freaking woman in her 30s to wife up and start a family. They want a woman in her 20s. This is, again, propaganda nonsense. But here we are. Absolute disgusting filth that's been pushed. This propaganda has been pushed for many years, and they're still pushing it and facilitating it through this game. Nonsense. But you know, we get a lot of women that speak this way, a lot of women who say my career is more important than a man. Multiple women, they sit there and they make fun of men just because we have to constantly shame men. There's many times where the men, right, they're complete buffoons apparently, but the women have all the sense in the room. And this happens many times, love of God. But anyways, man, it's just, you know, it amazes me how you have to jump through a bunch of hoops in this game to have sex with a woman. To have sex with a man is like, hey bro, what's up? Oh, hey bro, you're super into dudes, am I right? Was that a sexual provocation? Do you want to blow me right now? That's what happens. It's just like talking to a dude is flirting in this game. What the frick? Like, again, the amount of gay innuendos in this game. What the frick? Oh, jeez Louise. Now, of course, there is a lot of locker room talk in this game between the men about women, about women's physical attributes. Okay, fine, I like that. But it's ridiculous that this game just isn't much like the previous game, where it's like the men are just raging misogynists. Air quotes on that. They're not actual misogynists. But, you know, screw you feminists, misogyny all day. You know, if it's misogyny to be attracted to a woman, then let's just be misogynistic all day. Anyways, man. Anyways. I mean, yeah, again, if it's misogyny to be attracted to a woman, I mean, literally go bone yourself. But, so, whatever. The previous game, if this game, Kingdom Come Deliverance II, was like the previous game, where we are raging misogynists, air quotes on that, and we're just talking about women's attributes and being like, oh, that chick's old. And then we're talking about the other chick and it's like, ah, she has no breasts. And then we're talking about the other chick and we're like, she's freaking stacked and I'm gonna ram it inside of her. then okay, then this game's completely fine if it's just a bunch of locker room talk between men. But sadly, we have locker room talk mixed in with a bunch of gay innuendos every dialogue line. You have any idea how much freaking gay nonsense, the innuendos, dialogue after dialogue is thrown into this game? Nonsense. Now we're going to talk about the final aspect of this game that I was forgetting to talk about before we close any of this out. There's a bunch of Jewish propaganda in this game. For whatever reason, Vavra wants to literally have proto-Nazi characters in this game and vilify them and act like, oh, you know, these guys are super wrong and evil, oh, and they hate the Jews. That for some reason, there's this whole thing about anti-Semitism in the storyline. And there's a bunch of propaganda where they're constantly trying to prop up Jewish people using terms that Jews use, which is calling non-Jews goys. Okay. And like the Jews literally, some of these Jewish characters, they literally speak down and literally call non-Jewish people stupid. And then they still complain about the anti-Semitism by the white people in this game and by apparently the villains in this game who are supposed to be proto-Nazis. They still complain about them and potential racism from them, while they sit there and say that you as a white Anglo-Saxon, you're a complete moron, you're all buffoons, you're all uncivilized apparently. And this is Rosa right here, by the way, the freaking chick that's a girl boss that says, I'm gonna go chase my career instead of you, Henry, after you bang her in one kind of scene. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention this. By the way, in the previous game, you get to see naked women. When you have romances with women, you actually see sex scenes. You actually see their breasts. You know what happens in this game? You barely, when you get with the prostitutes, you don't see their breasts. The screen literally blacks out. It fades out to black and you hear moaning, and that's it. Lame and gay. You don't even get to see yourself banging a lot of the women in this game. Now, you do get to see yourself banging Rosa, but this is nonsense that for some reason, we don't just get to see every time we bang women like in the previous game. We don't just get to see their freaking breasts. We don't get to see them naked. This is nonsense. And then we get to see a freaking naked dude naked in this game in a sex scene. Disgusting filth. Again, this game is freaking gay. And the fact that they would even literally black out the screen on heterosexual freaking relationships is disgusting filth. Oh my gosh, this game. If this does not convince people to just completely give up on the Kingdom Come Deliverance games and just say, screw this franchise, I'm not buying it ever again, then you support wokeness. You are complicit with the wokeness crimes. Screw you. You support multiculturalism. You support feminism. You support homosexuality. You support wokeness. That is you. Screw you. And this is the problem that we have with this game, is that you have Shills going out and they're acting like the right wing and they're acting like all these things about whatever it is that they think that they believe, and they're acting like they're not woke and they're acting like all this nonsense. And no, you are woke. You are a progressive, egalitarian piece of filth, and you support all this nonsense that has no place in our games. Moving on. And by the way, again, it's so easy, bro. It's such a pony show. By the way, to get laid with Rosa, you have to revert your save state to have sex with the women in this game because it's difficult to figure it out. If you want to have sex with men in this game, you don't have to reverse any of your save states unless you intentionally forego the homosexual sex. Homosexuality is on full display and ready to go at it in this game. The heterosexual relationships, you have to freaking try. You have to bust your freaking nuts to freaking get a freaking sex scene with a woman. And even then, right, they black out a good number of the sex scenes with the women. This is nonsense. Oh, so just back to the Jewish propaganda. Yeah, so anyways, they just act like the Jews are better than the whites and that the whites are evil and that they're stupid, literally calling them stupid, literally acting like the Jews are better than the whites in this game. And then meanwhile, they also complain about anti-Semitism and that, oh, you know, the Jews, they have to hide away. And then, and there's all kinds of other propaganda about it that they I'm not getting into it. Not getting into it. But anyways, the villain, one of the villains in this game, who's apparently a homosexual that got groomed by one of the freaking other villain guys, and he has this whole freaking vengeance quest against Henry because he's upset. This scorned homosexual lover is upset with Henry that Henry killed his homosexual grooming father figure. It's weird. What the frick? How do people get behind this game? Again, I don't care about the shills. I don't know how many of them exist. They're typically very loud. I don't care for any of the shills. You are a disgusting piece of freaking filth. It's just that simple. You, in the amount of people looking past all the blatant propaganda in this game, it just amazes me. Now, I think there's a lot of people, they've lost faith with this franchise. They've lost faith. This is so different from the previous game. You know, there's a lot of people, a lot of guys out there, they feel betrayed. And you should feel betrayed. But it's just amazing to me, the people that are peddling the lies and the narratives and the propaganda about this game. So anyways, moving on. We got a lot of Jewish propaganda. We got a lot of vilification. I forget. There's something with the Jews in this game that the amount of times that they trash on white people is amazing. But I mean, the amount of times that the black dude trashes on white civilization, the amount of times that white people are just trashed on in this game, and the amount of vilification and the amount of propaganda that's just being stuffed down your throat. And if you're an egalitarian retard, you're gonna believe all this and be like, oh, haha, white people are so bad. No, they're not. There's a reason why all of these races of people, they always storm into white countries. Why do you think that is? They never storm into their own countries. That's weird. Anyways, moving on. So here's the last point I have to make. And by the way, this game is very buggy. I'm just gonna say that as well. There's a bunch of silly moments that happen. A lot of frustrating moments that happen for a lot of people, including from everything that I've seen, that there's so many bugs that are possibly game breaking at times, and other times not so much, but just very frustrating. You might want to quit playing the game. Anyways, moving on. Here's the final point I have to make. They want you to regard the villains in this game through this whole, because there are so many, like, for some reason, Jews and Jewishness and like literal voodoo magic through another the first Jewish character that you meet who's inventing gunpowder apparently. And that's also probably propaganda that they want to sell, that the Jews invented gunpowder, but whatever. Anyways, let's just look past that for 2 seconds. You have, oh man, you have so many layers of Jewish propaganda where they're literally just trying to put Jews on a pedestal and demonize white people and just act like, for some reason, like Jews are the end all and be all of civilization. It's really weird, and it is a staple throughout this storyline. Okay, again, we have this voodoo magic guy that's literally engaging in witchcraft, satanic rituals, and he's a Jew, and there's supposed to be a big deal with him being a Jew. I don't know what that's about, but it's in the game. And then you have other Jews, again, crapping on white people in the game, saying that white people are stupid and whatnot. And that's in the game. And then you also have the fact that the main villains in the game are supposed to be proto-Nazi characters who are against the Jews, and they're apparently hunting down the Jews, and they're big bad guys for doing this. Meanwhile, the Jews, they have all these negative intentions towards white people. They're trying to undermine these, in Bohemia, they're trying to undermine these white regions. Even you helping them, you're getting trashed on. Really weird. Oh man. I don't know what's going on in this game, man. But anyways, there's all this weird Jewish propaganda in this game. And again, we're making the villains white people who are supposed to be super bad, evil Nazis, which, by the way, I've spoken about this so many times with the Yazis from 1930s Germany. I've spoken about this ad nauseum. There's nothing wrong, for one, with a nation of people saying, no, we want our people and our country, and we do not want to be subverted. We do not want to be changed, and we don't want to have people come in and literally deconstruct us and change our race and change our identity. We don't want that. There's nothing wrong with taking these people out of your population, whoever these people are. But it's amazing because you will always have people when they're melanated and woke white people, whether they're left or right, because there's a lot of right-wingers, they're basically Democrats, they're neoliberals, whatever. People will get upset on the behalf of blacks and browns, or the Jews, who happen to be a mixture of skin tones. They will literally sit there and they will prop up ethno-states, ethno-nationalist states for black. Oh, there's the busty chick that happens to be a single mother. Actually, no, her child died. Anyways, but it's very difficult to have sex with her in this game. Anyways, moving on. You have these people who will literally run to bat for ethno-nationalist states led by and facilitated by Jews or blacks or browns. But the second that white people want their countries to be for themselves, they're labeled as evil and racist and all this stuff. They will support, again, get this, white people will even literally, and also the blacks and the browns and the Jews, all of them will sit there, all these woke Democrat pieces of filth, they'll sit there and say, oh, the Jews, they should live in a Jewish country and they should be allowed to push out, in other words, eradicate people who are not Jewish out of their Jewish country. And then they will also sit there and get on the side of the blacks who are leading apartheids out in Africa, South Africa specifically, trying to run out white people out of their black nations, black, regions, whatever else. Nobody's upset when the blacks and the browns and the Jews, because this also happens in brown countries too. No one gets upset when white people are getting ran out of any of these countries, and black people, whether or not black people or brown people or Jewish people are in the right or wrong, it doesn't matter to the left. They literally support white people getting driven out of countries. But when white people sit there and say, no, we want to maintain and facilitate our white country for ourselves, you are labeled evil, racist, and you're told, how dare you? And this is the thing that was done to the Yahtzees. These were people who were starving. Their economy was being impoverished by specifically a very select ethnicity group of people. And they had enough. And by the way, the numbers that you were given, they're not the real numbers. And by the way, a lot of these people were just displaced and they were deported out to Palestine. That's what happened. But regardless of that, it doesn't matter how it happened. They had an absolute right, and any white country has a right of getting rid of the people that are not their own people and getting rid of the invaders. However they deem fit, they have the absolute right, because a people and their country, they have the absolute sovereignty, the authority to say, we want to be surrounded by our own people and we wish not to be subverted. And it is amazing that we sit here and we say that it is unacceptable for white people to maintain and sustain white countries. Absolute nonsense. To sit there and say that the Yahtzees are evil is absolute hubris. It is absolute ignorance. But this is due to propaganda that so many people will sit here and say all this nonsense. And also it is due to propaganda that people will sit there and say that the blacks, the browns, and the Jews, that they must, for one, be allowed to subvert other countries, white countries, and on top of that, that they are allowed to instigate the sovereignty of their colored countries. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? Absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. But this is pro-social warfare today, and this is an information warfare strategy by the left. And this is what they do to make you hate your own people, and specifically hate white people and support the eradication of the white race on the planet. Moving on. Oh man. But that's what this game is. That is the ultimate, one of the ultimate points about this game and its characters and the people being shown and expressed throughout it. A huge theme in this game is to push a pro-Jew narrative, to hate on anyone that I don't even know. It's just like that anyone that does not get on board with a pro-Jewish narrative, you are immediately anti-Jewish because of this, and you are to be immediately vilified and demonized. And that is a huge point all throughout the beginning, middle, and end of this game. That is a huge point facilitated through different characters, and specifically the villains are supposed to be anti-Semitic, and they say it multiple times, but there's, again, the idea is you're anti-Semitic, the villains, and you're evil, and you should be pro-Semitic, and if you're not, you're anti-Semitic, how dare you, and you should be humiliated, you should be executed by the main character of this game. Again, man, this entire game in its story, it, for whatever reason, is facilitating a Jewish narrative, and it wants the villains to be anti-Semitic, and it wants, for some reason, the good guys, I guess, to be associated with Jew, including the characters that are not Jewish, that are being crapped on by the Jews in this game. For some reason, white people are bad, whether they're the good guys or the bad guys. Again, that's a huge purpose and point of this story. I don't know what that's about, but it's in the game. And so, and you have people who have literally said this game's not woke. You have people who have sat there and said that it's not pushing all these nonsensical narratives throughout the storyline. There are so many layers of wokeness here. And again, some people sit there and they question like, oh, well, how is the, anti-Semitism? Because it's kind of a thing that's oddly like, people act like it's kind of bipartisan or whatever. Because like there's leftists that aren't really happy with the Jews, and then there's right-wingers who are happy with the Jews or not happy with the Jews. So people try to act like it's apolitical, but no. Here's the main reason why wokeness, specifically why anti-Semitism is a part of wokeness. Because anti-Semitism is weaponized and utilized as a position and as a point in conversation. It is an attack vector against nationalism. It is to attack any specifically white nation and its nationalistic urges. It is completely facilitated to make you hate on sustaining and procuring the essence of a white nation. Because again, they don't have a problem with sustaining the essence of a Jewish nation, a brown person's nation, if that's Hispanic, I don't know, some other Indian maybe, Pakistan maybe, I don't know about that. But there's very specific colored groups. There's no problem if you're a nationalist of these groups, but specifically when you're white. And again, the fact that this game vilifies white people, whether they're the good guys or the bad guys, and they want the bad guys to be proto-Nazis, even though those guys just wanted to sustain their country and their people. There's nothing wrong with that. They didn't want their culture subverted. It's amazing to me to see that this is being pushed, and this is a part of wokeness. And again, a part of wokeness pushing the whole anti-Semitism narrative is so that you hate nationalism and you ultimately support multiculturalism, which again, as we stated earlier in the video, this has always been the predecessor to any great nation in its downfall, is when you support multiculturalism, because you have a bunch of ethnicities that ultimately are at war with one another, at each other's throats, wrestling with one another for power and control over the government and representation within the government. It never has worked out, and it always causes civil war within nations. There's a reason why, by the way, East and Western Rome developed. Understand this. The regions that Rome did have of Africa was the regions of Western Rome was in Africa. Spain, France, and also the regions that we know of today as Italy. Eastern Rome were the areas that are better known as, for the most part, the Middle Eastern zones. So largely the Muslims, maybe also the Persians of that time, whatever. So we look at Turkey, we look at Egypt. It's those regions, Eastern Rome. There's a reason why Rome split West and Eastern Rome, and that's because you had so many different ethnicities that the spirit of the nation was ultimately split. It was corroded from inside. And this is what allowed these nations to their downfall, including Greece, when it had so many multiple municipalities and city-states that were of different ethnicities, different regions, different religions. These people did not have shared values and beliefs. And so because of that, you ended up having a lot of civil wars between these city-states, and therefore Greece fell. And this is what you will see all throughout history. It's always happened time in and time again, and people always get fed up with it. Nobody wants to live in a heterogeneous racial society. Nobody wants it. And that is why, again, people try to act like it is apolitical, the whole Jew position, but ultimately the whole purpose is so that you accept multiculturalism. So anyways, man, walking away from this, there's, again, the feminism, the homosexuality, the multiculturalism, the some other random stuff about gender. I don't know why that's in here. And then all the Jewish stuff, for some reason, that is a huge staple throughout the storyline, and I don't know what that's about. But we see this, there are multiple layers of leftist / egalitarian / progressivist positions, propaganda, and beliefs that are being facilitated in this story throughout this game. There's so much dialogue fatigue that I experienced going through this, and just by the end of it, man, it reveals to me, you have all these people who will sit here and they will say that this isn't woke. I said this in a video covering this. When people ask, is it woke? My response has now become, does it really matter? Because what it really comes down to is, are you willing to admit to yourself what wokeness is? And when wokeness is shown to you, are you even going to care? It's ultimately your choice. And if you want to believe that wokeness is somehow not woke and somehow it's traditionalist now, well, for one, you don't know what wokeness is. And for two, you don't actually care what wokeness is in the end. After finishing this game, I stepped back and I literally was amazed with myself. I was like, you have so many people that are just blatantly unwilling to accept the truth of what this game is and many of its aspects and its narratives. They're unwilling to be honest with themselves and others about what it is that we're seeing. And you have so many people, so many shills running cover fire from specifically the writers and Vavra, all of these narratives that they're trying to push onto you. And again, effective propaganda is propaganda that you do not notice. And for many people, they want to act like this isn't propaganda. And that's because they're not being told it's propaganda. Well, just because it's not being told to you that this is propaganda does not mean that it's not propaganda. Again, the best propaganda is the propaganda you don't notice. It reveals the absolute lack of intelligence that these people have when you sit there and you admit to the fact that you have to be told that something's propaganda in order for you to accept that it is propaganda. So anyways, man, after finishing this game, I was just amazed by it. I was amazed by how many people are running the bat for it. And I know for a fact that this ruins the sequel. If there's ever going to be a sequel, which I think they want, this ruins any potential for a sequel. This puts a bad taste in many customers, gamers, their mouths. No one's going to trust this anymore, these developers, after they went woke with this and after they pushed all these different narratives and all this subtle propaganda or overt propaganda. Doesn't matter. I don't know how anyone can trust these guys, especially for the sequel, whatever that sequel would happen to be. And I think they want a sequel, so like, what the frick? But they ruined the studio. Warhorse, they ruined themselves by what they facilitated here, and specifically just all this nonsense that they pushed with the characters. And the Shills, by the way, I can't believe the Shills. I can't believe these people sat there and they said this wasn't woke when there's blatant wokeness in this game. It's so amazing. This has revealed so many people. This reveals how there's a culture of people who just want to excuse wokeness now because there's been so much wokeness in media, video games, movies. There's been so much for so long now. So many people just want to excuse this at this point. Well, no, this is nonsense. Warhorse, they ruined their own studio. I hope they go broke. And Vavra, he is a complete hack writer. I can't believe this game, man. I can't believe it's gotten so many shills. Do not forget, check out Charles Arlington on Amazon if you want a proper story, you want proper storytelling that should be in our movies and in our games. Pick up my books, pick up my work. Literally pick up any of it. It's all good. Especially if you appreciate what I'm doing here, if you appreciate my work, my videos, whatever, and you want me to continue, then definitely pick up any of my stuff and just help me help you. I'm making the books, I'm making these stories that we should be getting, and it's the reason why I'm doing this, is ultimately to create a solution for you guys. Anyways, I'll catch you on the next video.